What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here at Lake Julian Disc Golf Course, and we're just going to be running through a whole bunch of different types of discs today because we are going over my favorite molds in every speed category from 1 to 12. I don't throw anything faster than a 12, and you'll see a little bit of controversy over the 6 speed because I also don't throw a 6 speed, but we'll get there eventually. Starting off on hole number 1 with the 1 speeds. Now, my favorite 1 speed, if you watched my channel for any period of time, any length of time, you've probably seen me throw and heard me talk about the Spore. I absolutely love the Spore. When everyone was talking about the pull catch or the glitch, which one was going to be better, I thought that the glitch was going to fly like the Spore, and then I got it and I realized that the glitch still had the issues that I had with the pull catch. The Spore, however, doesn't have those same issues. This is a low speed, extremely glidey putter that has some stability and some finish. And this is in the NeoSoft plastic. Comes in a couple different types of plastics. You got NeoSoft and Lux Vapor. Lux Vapor is my favorite plastic from any company of all time. It's my favorite. But we're throwing this today. It's gonna hold really straight. I don't have to throw it very hard. And then if it does finish, which this one's a little beat in, so it might not have the same amount of fade, but if it does finish, it's going to be a much slower pushing finish. It's not going to dump off on you. It's going to be pretty straight even while it's fading. I love the Spore. The next disc in the speed slot is the number 2, and for me it's the P2. I absolutely love the P2. I love to putt with it. I love to throw it. My favorite of the throwing P2s are the Sky God 4s. I love the C-line plastic just in general. And the Sky God 4s give me the ability to have a straight shot once they're beat in, and they're going to hold that beat in for a very long period of time. But they also give me the ability to have a flex putter as well. So I have 3 P2s in my bag at any point in time. One of them holds straight, one of them is overstable, and one of them is in a super grippy plastic so I can putt with it. Now, I do also like that the C-line plastic has different stabilities based off of their colors. The pink is going to be the straightest, the yellow and the green is going to be their most overstable. So, and I have a whole range. So depending on what the wind might be for that day, depending on how I'm throwing, I can literally just go change the color of the putter and I'm gonna have a slightly different stability. Here's straight versus overstable. Just holds that line, faintest bit of a fade versus this. Has a pretty decent amount of fade, and if it wasn't a left bending shot and I needed to push it straight, I can throw it on anhyzer and it's going to turn a little bit and drift and then come back and fade and put me dead center right where I need to be, and it'll fight the wind. For me, that's pretty much as far as my putters go. Once we get to the 3 speeds, it doesn't really fly like a putter for me. I throw the Envy. I like it in plasma, I like it in proton, I like the Eclipse plastic, but those fly much further than putters. They fly really more like slow mid-ranges. So I'm gonna throw this and hopefully you can see how it handles differently compared to the Sky God 4s. Because it's not as an aggressive of an edge, it's more of a putter rim shape, but because you get the distance of a mid-range with the Envy, you're going to have reliable, consistent, extremely controllable flights, but still getting the distance. So even though I'm throwing it like it's a mid-range, well, because I'm throwing it like it's a mid-range, I'm powering up on it a little bit more than I am on my other putters. It's gonna hold straight for a very long time, which is why I like that 0-1 or 0-2 in that slot as my true neutral, because I can really rip onto it, and even into a headwind, it's really not gonna turn. As far as 4-speeds go, I love the Clash Peach. This is steady ring plastic. I love their steady plastic. Their steady ring is super pretty, and it has a touch more torque resistance. It's a slightly understable, so think Comet, but without a bead, and just super reliable. It's gonna be very consistent, doesn't matter the color, doesn't matter which run it is. All of their steady plastic seems to be extremely consistent. You're gonna have a nice little flip up to flat and ride straight, or a touch of hyzer and it'll flip and ride and turn for you. And you get really nice S-flights. And it's a 4-speed, but it glides so far, it actually flies as far, if not further, than my faster mid-ranges. As far as 5-speeds go, I love the Method. I used to love the Rock 3, but they changed up either the plastic or the mold or both, and it's just not as overstable as it used to be. The Method is that disc for me now, especially in the C-Line and in Lux Vapor. I love it. The C-Line's a touch flatter and flies like the old school, like Paul Macbeth Rock 3s. Very overstable, gives you a lot of push and a lot of straight flight before it starts to fade, but it's not so aggressive that it's hard to use. And now this is where we're gonna get to slightly controversial. I don't bag a 6-speed. The closest thing I have to a 6-speed is, it's called a 5-speed, but based off of, I mean, you can look up the rim thicknesses, and this disc realistically should be a 5.5 or a 6-speed. Most of Axiom and MVP's 5-speeds are 13 millimeters. This disc is a 14.5 millimeter, and their 6.5 speed, the Crave, is a 16 millimeter. So is it a 5-speed? Is it a 5.5 speed? Is it a 6-speed? Closest thing I can get to that is the Axiom Pyro. I love this disc. It flies like a straighter, further pushing zone, but it doesn't have the torque resistance because the rim is a little bit thicker than a lot of those other approach overstable style mid-ranges. The torque resistance on a forehand, it is almost unrivaled and unparalleled, because you get the torque resistance of something way more overstable, but you still have the straight flight of something that's just a slightly overstable mid-range. So I actually bagged 3 Pyros, not this one. I bagged 2 Neutrons and a Proton. This was, however, the first Pyro I ever threw, the first Pyro I ever got my hands on, and the one that kind of made me fall in love with this disc. And still love to pull it out every once in a while. It's still the dream to forehand. It's a little bit straighter than it used to be, but does that stop me from loving this disc? No, it's amazing. Now the 7-speed that I bag, technically I have 2 different molds, even though one of them is just kind of a repurposed and branded something else from a different company. But it's the Star Eagle, the Innova Eagle, specifically the Eagle X mold, not the Eagle L mold. I like that the tiny little hook nose on the edge of the rim. The first mold that I ever aced with was an old beat up DX Eagle. It was a Tomahawk skip ace. Skipped off the flight plate right up into the cage, right up into the chains. It was amazing. Probably the first time I realized that this game is absolutely awesome and amazing, and I want to play this for the rest of my life. So while everyone tells me bag a T-Bird, bag this, bag that, I can't get away from the Eagle. I don't know what it is. I've tried other molds, I've tried other things, and specifically the flat top Eagles, and especially for me the Star Eagles, I love them. They start off nice and pretty overstable, and then by the time you beat them in, they're super flippy and almost roller discs, and they're absolutely gorgeous. I do bag a Vela, which is Millennium discs. It's basically a slightly straighter Eagle out of the box, so I can stick one of those in as my straight Eagle anytime I need to. But I have a couple pink ones as my overstable Eagles, and then I have one Eagle that I've literally had for about, like, I don't know, 15 years, and it is super understable, super flippy, still has the Eagle finish though, so it's a disc that that's one of the few discs that I would look for hours to try to find. It's a mold that I can't get away from. Absolutely love the Eagle. Yeah, it's amazing. That might be too short. Now the 8-speed that has really chosen me, I didn't really choose it. I just threw it a couple of times and I was like, wow, this disc really loves my throw right now. That's the Discmania Essence. This one's in Meta with a cool little stamp. It's sparkly and pink, and it's easy to find in the woods. And actually in the lake, it's returned to me from the lake before. So Essence, slightly understable. You can, basically the same idea as the Peach. You can put on a touch of hyzer. You get a flip up and turn. You can put it on a lot of hyzer. It's gonna be laser beam straight. But it's got so much glide that it carries for so far. And on days when I'm having trouble getting a PD or a time lapse or something as far, this disc still might push to 400. It's so good and goes so far. Beautiful flip up flat. We're gonna do a double header here. We have 9-speed and 10-speed. We have the Captain's Raptor. This is the ESP run of Captain's Raptor, and then we have the S-Line PD. I love the Captain's Raptor because it's slightly more overstable than a PD or a Firebird, but not quite as overstable as a Splice, which is what I was throwing before. And so it's a lot of really good control. You can put it on angles, it's gonna flex back. And I do like that it has the tooling in the rim to give me a little bit extra grip on these rainier rounds. The S-Line PD specifically, it's a really good, if you pump it hard, it's gonna flip up a little bit. If you just throw it flat, you might get a little bit of a drift, but it's always going to fight back. This disc is amazing and one of the furthest flyers in my bag. Need a flex shot, grab a cap wrap. Need a straight hyzer, grab a PD. I love them. As far as 11 speeds go, I love the Wraith. It's amazing. Good old Star Plastic. They beat in to be super reliable flip up machines with a consistent, reliable finish. Something that you probably won't get from a Drive or a Grace. And it's kind of the OG 11 speed disc, whereas Destroyers are kind of everybody's favorite. Wraiths really should be their favorite because they're easier to throw Destroyers, and I love them similar to how I love the Eagle because it's overstable to start, but then you can beat it in to be basically whatever shot shape you want, and it's pretty good. Consistent, reliable, always gonna do the same thing. And then a couple thousand trees later, it's gonna hold almost laser beam straight until it finally just falls out of the air. 12 speed of choice is in fact the Simon Lizotte Simon Line time lapse for Maxim discs. This disc is amazing. The Neutron ones are overstable, but in a way that the Destroyers and the Cloud Breakers and the Zeuses and the Forces and all of those other ones just weren't quite for my throw. They gave me a push as they were fading. Everything else, even if I turned them, they didn't really get that same forward push. So I I was throwing neutron time lapses reliably 20 feet further on any given throw than I was a destroyer or a Cloudbreaker or a Zeus. And so that's why I went with the time lapse. And then, super exciting, they come out with a fission one, and it's now the furthest flying disc in my bag because it flies like a beat-in time lapse, like a beat-in destroyer, brand new out of the box. You throw it, it's gonna flip up to flat, or you throw it flat, and it's gonna turn and drift and ride, give you crazy amounts of distance with so much dome, so much glide, and it's just amazing. So walking over to 18, I have 2 more throws to do, and then we'll close it out. Hopefully we can finally get a good rip with this one out of this hole. I'm gonna not try too hard. I'm gonna focus on my form and not on powering up, because when I power it up, I always throw it straight into the ground. So focus on form, clean release, and then just punch it. Go for max distance, time lapse. Make sure to give it air this time. There it is. Time lapse is amazing. You may disagree with me on certain molds and certain types, but as I hopefully have already described, I have a different throwing style than almost every other disc golfer on the face of the planet, and I see disc golf in a different way. So if you don't like the disc I chose, make sure to comment down below what you think is your preferred disc in that specific slot. And make sure to like the video if you enjoy content like this. Make sure to subscribe, it helps you out and it helps me out. And until next time, see you out on the course.